Today, I'm defending Sig Sauer, which I got to be honest is not a fun place to be right now. Not a place I'm having a good time with. But I think it's the right thing to do because the anti-gun movement has now co-opted the scandal with the Sig P320 and its military variants into something that it is not. They have taken some published information that has been uncovered through this whole process, and they have churned it up, as they do over there on that side, that serves their needs. And this is an example of something that reads to people that have not a clue. So either these folks have no idea, like they haven't touched grass in years, or they have intentionally done this knowing what they are doing because they know that the people that read them don't have two neurons that fire in concert and can't put any kind of critical thinking into what it is that they're reading. They are given their NPC coding orders and they go and do. Then more after we hear a quick word from today's sponsor. Today's video is brought to you by XS Sites. I'm out here today preaching the good word of the XS Big Dot site. If you don't like the XS Big Dot site, then you're wrong. No, I'm just kidding. XS makes a whole bunch of different site profiles, not just the Big Dot site. They also do scope bases, optics rails, and even handguard rails now. And XS has been a big time, long time supporter of the channel. So I very much appreciate them supporting the mission here at the VSO Gun Channel. Let's get into the video. Do I think that Sig deserves to be drug for the way they've been handling this situation? Absolutely. Exhibit A. However, for them to be attacked over this by anti-gun groups and be turned into the poster child of negligence on behalf of the firearms industry to fit their narrative, I'm not okay with that. Now, this is not news, but to some of you, it might be. You may not have seen this before, but this is part of a risk assessment that was performed by Sig Sauer at the behest of the United States Army. This was originally uncovered as part of a court filing. It was redacted in that court filing, but it was not properly redacted, so it was able to be reversed and published by a third party. And since that publishing, Sig has basically come out and said, yeah, we did this for the Army. And I guess what I would say is that this has been used by pro-gun outlets and anti-gun outlets now to say that Sig knew about problems. And I gotta say, that's not what this says. This is a risk assessment. And this is kind of standard procedure for a high-end client like the United States Army. I would be shocked if there aren't 50 of these that cover various systems in the United States arsenal. Like, if you've never worked in a technical field that produces something, particularly something that is by its nature dangerous, like, oh, I don't know, a handgun that is literally designed to kill people, this is something that would be done. I have worked in places that this kind of stuff happened all the time. Just depends on where it is. But I could totally see where somebody who has no idea what they're even looking at could jump to some conclusions, because this has been basically used to say that Sig knew about manufacturing problems or problems with their pistol and they went ahead with it anyway. That's not what this says, but that's what the Smoking Gun says that it says, which, if you need to know anything about the Smoking Gun, just look at their homepage and that'll tell you everything that you need to know. But they allege that Sig identified several problems with their pistol and ignored them. Well, what are those problems? What we have here is a big matrix. We're going to focus on the two columns on the left, but this is basically everything in the kitchen sink that Sig can come up with that could possibly be a problem. And what are some of those problems? Some of these are legitimate, and some of them are in there because this is supposed to be an exhaustive risk assessment. Unintentional discharge, accidental trigger pull, operator error, accidental trigger pull, foreign object, improper clearing before takedown, impact to weapon, We've heard that one before. Slide ignites primer during closing, firing pin inertia. That's called a slam fire. And every gun has some potential of slam fire. It's just the way that it is. I mean, there are some guns that are like bolt action heavy caliber rifles that we like put the round of ammunition in the chamber and then we slowly lock because the gun is so powerful, the cartridge is so powerful that if it did go off, even though it is a minuscule chance, it could be very bad. So we take great care with some of those weapons because of that potential. All weapons, even bolt-action rifles, can slam fire. Let's continue. Multi-shot failure, excessive firing pin inertia. The slam fire has chained together, basically. Multi-shot failure, incidental trigger pull due to not enough trigger over travel, trigger reset distance. That means you didn't pull the trigger back far enough, the gun recoiled, and it caused you to bump fire it. Accidental trigger pull, holstering, unholstering, operator error, striker mechanical failure, unsafe hammer decock, accidental trigger pull while clearing of stoppage, slide ignites primer during feeding. The way this is supposed to work is when a round comes out of the magazine, it is supposed to go into the extractor channel that retains that piece of ammunition as it's being loaded into the chamber. There are some instances where the impact of that can be improper and can cause a primer to be set off. It's one of the reasons, for instance, that you don't drop a round into the chamber and drop the slide, because it can cause it to discharge. It can also break your extractor. Broken firing pin, stuck in the fire position. It's broken. Pieces break. Multi-shot failure. Sear fails to retain striker. That's a big deal. Multi-shot failure. Incidental trigger pull due to light trigger pull. It goes on and on and on. I mean, everything from like cook-offs, overpressured ammo. It even has the vials fall out of the night sights in the report. I think that if we are objective, the majority of the stuff that is in this matrix, in this risk assessment, are things that can happen with every gun. Everything from user error to manufacturer defect, there's some percentage in every weapon system, and it's going to happen. And that's why companies got to make it right. There are, however, a few things in this matrix that are very concerning. Let's be real. And I suspect that some of those things are probably the sources, or at least a major contributing factor to some of the trouble that SIG is currently in. But for an anti-gun organization like the Smoking Gun or anybody else who wants to co-opt this to grab onto this and basically say, look at this crap. SIG knew about all these problems and their solution was to train people better instead of to put a manual safety on the side of the gun. The manual safety has almost nothing to do with this. And the concept, and we covered this previously, that SIG is being sued in some instances over the fact that some guns have safeties and some guns do not is dangerous precedent. SIG's lack of capacity to get to the bottom of this and continuously blame shift, mismanagement of this whole scandal has allowed this to fester to the point where now the anti-gun organizations out there are using this as a poster child for industry negligence. And I just want to bring this to everybody's attention so that when we are continuing to investigate this on the consumer side, that we do so keeping in mind the lensing of what we're doing. Because you have to consider the frame of reference from the enemy. People who hate America, hate firearms ownership, hate your right to defend yourself, and will do everything in their power to destroy it, including writing bullshit like this for a bunch of people who have a collective IQ of somewhere around room temperature. I'm not saying that SIG should catch a break from our side in their continuous kicking the can down the road, because I'm of the opinion that they can't figure it out, that it's too complex of a situation, and at this juncture, They're just trying to kick the can down the road long enough that they can complete those contracts. That is solely my opinion, and I have no evidence to back that up whatsoever. What I am advocating, however, is that as this investigation continues to mature into the P320 and the military variances, more information comes to light about this, that we consider the framing of that information and the amplification of that data through the mediums that we use, and that we ensure or do our best to frame that information in a way that is least likely to be subverted and co-opted by the enemies of freedom. Because I don't know anything about Practical Shooting Insights. I don't know anybody from there. I have no reason to believe that they did this for nefarious purposes to hand propo materials to the enemies of freedom. They may have done this for entirely altruistic purposes, for the betterment of the industry, or perhaps for, as Sig claims, for clickbait farming. Does not matter. But what we can say for sure is that this document in this form has been used for those purposes. And perhaps a little bit of discretion. Again, I don't know anybody at Practical Shooting Insights. They may not even know what it is that they were looking at, but it was most certainly taken out of context. There is definitely useful information in that document that suggests that Sig is at least somewhat aware of something around a possible issue, but this could have been done much better than it was. And there's no taking it back now. It's out there. But in the future, we need to be cognizant of the fact that the anti-gun opposition has now entered the chat. The road to hell is paved with good intentions.